So continuing with our theme of how fake what we saw last night was, I give you now Jill Biden, SOT 10.
Weeks ago, when I saw him dig deep into his soul and decide to no longer seek re-election and endorse Kamala Harris.
He dug deep, guys. That's how it went down. Soul searched.
Also, whenever they made that, transition from either when it was Joe speaking and even when Jill was speaking over to Kamala, didn't she seem small? Even among the Nancy Pelosi's and even the Maxine Waters, it just comes off as Kamala's just not even close in terms of the same level as these folks who've had experience, won elections. It's when they go back to her, it just kept, at least to me, it was a shock of this is really their presidential nominee.
Yeah, they were walking this line between passing the torch, although that's bullshit in and of itself. It had to be ripped from his hands. He didn't want to pass the torch. I mean, he did
That's
2
the
months
thing.
of insisting that he could still do the job and that the polling said that he would win. But it got to the point that it was sort of patronizing of Kamala, you know? The best decision I made in my whole political career was this thing I telegraphed on day one that I'd nominate a black woman as vice president. It just happened to be this woman. That was my best decision my entire political career. I mean, come on.
I mean, he's had a lot of really bad decisions.
So to your point earlier about where are the real people, with their real stories, what I saw of that last night was the 3 women who have had abortions, who got up there to talk about abortion. And I have nothing but empathy for the 3rd woman who talked about how she was raped by her stepfather. Her name is Hadley Duval. But where she took that horrific experience in the conclusion, what her takeaway was on it politically, was just dead wrong. I mean, it was really wrong. Here's what she said.
I can't imagine not having a choice. But today, that's the reality for many women and girls across the country because of Donald Trump's abortion bans. He calls it a beautiful thing. What is so beautiful about a child having to carry her parents' child?
You don't have to look very far to hear Donald Trump's actual position on abortion and in particular, rape and incest exceptions. Listen.
Yeah.
Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also.
Now, guys, that was not ancient history. That was at the June debate with Joe Biden. Where are the 10,000 fact checks of the misinformation that was given out from the DNC floor last night on an important piece of this contest? People have been debating abortion at every debate, at every appearance. Where does Trump stand? He's made perfectly clear he's taken shit from the right for saying what he said there. And yet I'll wait for PolitiFact and the others to fact check, yes, a sympathetic person who got up there and said very false things about Trump's position.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the worst kind of lie because it's wrapped up in a horrific, highly emotional story that you can immediately sort of sympathize with and identify with of a horrible choice that this young woman had to make. But even in the setup to ultimately the big lie that she had there, she's calling it Donald Trump's abortion ban. Look, I understand that a convention is not the place for nuance or that kind of thing. But I mean, we're talking about a Supreme Court decision that was decided and threw these things back to a bunch of states of whom you elect your representatives and then they make the policy. The idea that Donald Trump is somehow presiding over abortion bans is entirely ridiculous, even before you get to the point where his stated position since the time he came down the golden escalator was exceptions for rape, incest, or life of and health of the mother.
But there are no fact checks because the media is on their side. I mean, we say it over and over and over again, but it's true. Like, we talked about this Tim Walz IVF thing. In the New York Times story about the Tim Walz IVF lie, they write, people assumed that Tim Walz had a baby through IVF. They didn't write like why they assumed it. Tim Walz told people he had a baby through IVF. They had a baby through IVF. They don't fact check them, like in the Coach thing. Yeah. Politico wrote a profile with artwork with like X's and O's and plays, making him look like he was Eddie Robinson.
The coaching really riles up Ashbrook. He just like the little lies he tells over and over again that are like boosted by the media rather than like checked and beat down.
And I think there's a reason
it's more
for that,
stolen valor.
It's like Duncan said, they're trying to run against Donald Trump and not the horrors of living under the Biden-Harris administration. So when they say that it's a Trump ban, they want you to think that, wow, these past 4 years have sucked. I guess it must have been because of Trump somehow. And they have to lie about it, because are they going to be able to have a convention where they're like, let's celebrate the price of groceries going up 50%. You're not getting rounds of applause with that. Kamala herself is trying to act like she wasn't a part of that, saying that like groceries have gone up by 50%. Well, what are you going to do about it when you were already there causing it?
Well, by the way, she's saying she's going to use the FTC to write these very wrong grocery prices. You control them right now. Like you're in the office. That's actually something. If that's your solution, why don't you just go get that done? But she doesn't, and she's banking on people not knowing any of that. One of the most outrageous moments last night. Truly one of the most. I mean, because they're joyful. They're the party of uplift. And on the eve of Bill Clinton coming to the stage, right? Because he comes not tonight, but tomorrow. So I guess 2 eves away. They have the nerve to run like an ad about Law and Order. I referenced it in the intro. And they borrow a little bit from the Dick Wolf show. And here is a bit of what they played.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by 2 separate yet equally important groups. The police who investigate crime, and the district attorneys who prosecute the offenders. This is the story of Donald Trump. His entire life, Trump has believed he's above the law, that no one would ever dare hold him accountable. He lies, he rips off workers, he sexually abuses women.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
He cheats in business. He cheated on his wife with a porn star and paid her off so the American people wouldn't find out during an election. But in the criminal justice system, ordinary Americans have had the courage to find him accountable, time and time again.
Guilty. Donald Trump, guilty on all 34 felony counts.
For the first time in history, we have a convicted felon running for president. And to take on this case, we need a president who has spent her life prosecuting perpetrators like Donald Trump.
Okay. I don't know where to begin, but let's just start with cheated on his wife. Her husband, Kamala Harris's own husband, the man who she wants us to make first gentleman, cheated on his first wife with the nanny, which honestly is worse than with a porn star. With the nanny whom he impregnated. He did not deny this report when it was brought to him. Nobody knows what happened to the baby. Was the baby aborted? Is there a love child that Doug Emhoff has with this woman? We don't know because the media won't follow up on this. I didn't see that in her video last night. Not to mention the Bill Clinton problems. Donald Trump is a predator. Bill Clinton's predatory behavior puts every politician's to shame. He's the OG sexual predator. And he'll be taking the stage on Wednesday night with her blessing. She'll be sitting in the audience applauding the man who was accused of raping Juanita Broderick, of sexually assaulting Kathleen Willey and Paula Jones, and I could keep going. But you see, we're supposed to memory hole all of that because he's Bill Clinton.
Yeah, it's sadistic. Also, the whole premise of her being tough on crime is just a laughable proposition. I saw an ad, I think it was MAGA Inc. or something, that had a relative of somebody who was killed by a recidivist that she let out of prison in California. We all remember, obviously, the bail fund in Minneapolis that let a whole bunch of criminals out of jail after trashing the city of Minneapolis, and the rate of recidivism and violent crime amongst a few of them was astronomical, unthinkable with somebody who tries to fashion themselves as tough on crime. They just don't have, and the reason that they switched to the Trump thing, and we said this from the very beginning of why they wanted Donald Trump, is because their whole game plan before they knew that they had to trash Joe Biden was if they could convict him in a court of law and just put a ceiling on his vote at like 48% in the states that matter, with the rhetoric that this is a convicted felon over and over and over again, they would never actually have to talk about what it is that they've done to this country. And now that they've gone through this 6-week period of their own struggles, but threw Joe Biden overboard, they're back to the game plan. And that little video, I think, is the best representation of the original strategy the Democrats were taking into 2024 that was on hiatus over the summer, but they're now back in action and they think they've got a winner with it.
Well, it does absolutely nothing to convince a single persuadable voter in this country. Like, that's catnip for the base and the people who are sitting there at that Democratic convention. But if you listen to what actual persuadable voters or these double haters want to hear. They want to hear from Kamala what she actually plans to do. They want to hear policy positions and a vision for the future of the country. This whole idea of her being a prosecutor who's going to take it to Donald Trump does not motivate a single one of those people to vote for her.
Well, it's belied by the facts that she was never tough on crime.
And it also, yeah. I mean, people they have such cynicism and such a low regard for the media and politicians at this point, back to from Russiagate to COVID, we got to mask toddlers, but if you're going to burn down cities with BLM, you don't have to wear a mask, stuff like that. Like, people are just so cynical to the point where, like, they don't care. Mm-hmm. They do not care that Donald Trump was convicted of these felonies in New York. They see right through that thing.
As a kid, you loved eating cereal, right? But as an adult, you don't want all that sugar. And most cereals don't have the protein you want or need. But then there's Magic Spoon, a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like your childhood favorites, but without the sugar and with a ton of protein. And now Magic Spoon has turned their super popular cereal into high protein treats that are light, crispy, and taste just like those classic crunchy cereal bars. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are so delicious and can serve as a before or after gym snack. Magic Spoon's treats are an easy way to get 11 grams of protein, that's good, on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores now with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/MK, or just look for Magic Spoon in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/MK for $5 off. Magic Spoon. Hold on to the dream. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.